Welcome, people. I hope you can hear me. This is the first time I've attempted to do this, and we're going to see how we get along. I might have to re-edit this. I haven't got a clue, but this is something I would like to maybe make a habit of doing. I can't do it for every film, but films that I like, that really stand out for me, that I have some sort of grasp on. I'm going to try and make an effort at doing these audio commentaries. So bear with me. I'm sure there's going to be loads of mistakes in the first few of them. And my dog, you may hear my dog, you may hear my shoes. I'm in my office at the moment. So what I'm going to do is do a very quick, before we start the movie, do a really quick run through on just some sort of basic information. And I've gotten all this from Wikipedia, so I mean anyone can look this up. And so this is English director Sam Mendes' 2019 film, 1917. It stars George McKay. Was it George Mackay? I can't remember. Dean Charles Chapman, Mark Strong, Andrew Scott, Richard Madden, Colin Firth, and Benedict Cumberbatch. I'm not going to go through the plot because we're going to walk through that anyway. This is essentially based in World War II, and it's based in reality around the German retreat to the Hindenburg Line during Operation Albrecht. And the two characters that we see in this movie, or the principal protagonist, the main character, is based on a real man, but his name is made up, and this narrative is made up, but the setting it's in is all historically accurate. So this line would have existed. The fact that the character tries to get to this other line, that also existed. So the areas, the places are real, and the overall events are real, and the characters are based on real people, but they're not actually. Their names aren't real, and the situations are based in reality, but they're stitched together from different stories. All related to Sam Mendes' paternal grandfather, who was in the war, World War One. Fought on the British side, obviously. This film was a massive success. It was a huge box office hit, grossing over 384 million worldwide, and it got 10 Academy nominations that year, which would have been 2020, I'm assuming. The 92nd Academy Awards, and they won 3. They were technical awards. They won photography, editing, and sound effects, I think, or effects in general. It's just over 2 hours long, just under 2 hours long. I think it's 2 minutes shy of 2 hours long. Its budget was 90 to 100 million, and it grossed 384.6 million worldwide. Very, very well. Mostly shot in England, although I think they did they go abroad to shoot one or two scenes? I can't quite remember, but mostly shot in England, up and around near the Salisbury Plain. That's kind of really it. I don't want to go into too much because is there anything else there? Thomas Newman did the music. Mendes is a fantastic director. He's a bit of a maverick, and he's got a bit of a Midas touch, but he puts a lot of effort and thought into everything he makes. You know, he's not a journeyman, pretty much a maverick. He's worked in multiple different genres, and he's been highly successful at them, and he's at this now a good 20 nearly 30 years, I would say. He's married to that English actress who I always forget her name. who's also a fantastic actress in her own right. Has had a wonderful career in her own right, should I say. And that's about it. So I think he did I've liked most of his movies. Sometimes the subjects are a bit boring for me, but like I said, they're generally like a nice meal to sit down and have, a nice 4-course meal to sit down and have. Something Road from the 90s, and I thought, oh my god, the photography on that is fantastic. I forget the name of it, but anyway, one of his skills though as a director, Mendes as a director, is he always gets a good DP, director of photography, cinematographer. As we know, cinematographers are essentially glorified photographers, so they make your picture look really, really beautiful. And lighting, set lighting, what sort of cameras to use, etc., how to move the camera, etc. So he generally picks a really, really good DP, and he's worked a lot with Roger Deakins before, an English DP, and the man is a genius. And you put the two together, you put this wonderful director, this wonderful narrative, and this wonderful DP together, and you get 1917. Now, overall, it's not an incredibly complicated movie. It's got a very simple see-through in terms of its narrative. It's very much it's a little bit of a road movie, actually. It's very perfunctory. The character goes from A to B, C to D, and he goes through a journey. It's not very complicated in that sense, but it is a technical achievement insofar as that they tried to shoot the entire movie in as few takes as possible. So I think there's only four or five actual cuts, but there are two principal ones. The first half of the movie and the second half of the movie. The first half of the movie turns to black for a second, halfway through the movie, and then we get this second, the other half of the movie, this sort of second sequence. But there are little snippets and cuts and bits and pieces going on in there in between. But it's a technical achievement in terms of that. So the entire production had to be worked out months in advance. They had to know what sets they wanted, what the dimensions of the sets were, where the characters were how the characters were going to walk through sets. It was very complicated shooting it. Some of the cast members and the extras had to dress up as nothing else, but some of the crew members, should I say, and the cast members had to dress up in costume and were literally carrying cameras and then handing cameras back and handing cameras through different props and so on and so forth, so to create this continuous sequence of film. So it was very complicated in that sense, and it's just beautifully lit. There's a beautiful sequence as we go on. There's a beautiful sequence where they're in a town that's a French town in the north of France, which is basically being bombed out by the Germans, and there's this beautiful flaring going on from the flares that are being shot up, and this entire church that's on fire. But so you've got this wonderful DP. You've got this complicated camera setup. I think he only used 3 or 4 lenses on the picture. So it's all underscored by Thomas Newman's film score. And Mendes has worked with Thomas Newman before. And Newman is great. He makes these very subtle, kind of lofty piano kind of scores. But he's added in some nice digital percussion here. and it sounds great in the cinema theatre. But that's kind of it, really. I don't really want to. We want to kind of walk through the movie now. As I said, I hope this all works. That's basically it. Was there anything else that I had to go through there? Let's see. The production. Yeah, the cameras. No, that's really it. And then, of course, there's the end sequence, of course, which was all shot over 2 days. Very complicated piece of logistics. That's it. Okay, so basically, if you're listening to this now, if you have the movie or your DVD or whatever, however, what way you have the movie, if you basically put it on there and shunt yourself forward to where it says April 6th, 1917. And we will start now. So this film... I'll count you down, should I say. So this film starts, just to give you a very brief introduction here, in terms of... I really hope that you can hear me. In terms of... backstory in terms of establishing characters and locations and setting up the mood and the sort of general idea of the film. It's all done very, very quickly in this opening sequence where we see the main character, McKay, who I forget his name, is Lance Corporal something, Will Schofield, yeah, and Tom Lake. So Will Schofield is the character being played by George McKay. And you see this opening sequence, he's under a tree. This film will nod a lot to trees. You will see trees in different sequences as we move through. And you will see here the only sort of light side of the movie until we come to the end of the movie, and the movie ends with the main character and another tree in a very bucolic situation. So there's just a little bit of lightness because this movie's going to get very dark very quickly. So we then see the two characters, two friends, and they are under this tree. They're woken up. They're being told to go into the trenches to go and meet a general, and they're about to be given orders essentially to cross over into no man's land and basically send a message to another division a couple of miles away, basically, in order to halt an attack which would end up being set up because the Germans would outnumber them. So it's basically about one division of the British Army trying to save another division of the British Army, and they send these two low-key soldiers basically to get that message across. But what I want you to look out for here is how Roger Deakins, because this movie is all about light, it's all about colour, and this continuous camera movement, and how we go from this yellow-greeny world to this very dark blue, browny mud pit. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. April 6th, 1917, press play. And there we go. So here we are. Beautiful summer pasture in northern France. White, green and yellow. All very Kodak. And then suddenly we have these blue, brown, green, khaki green, two soldiers. The Clark character here, the Blake character here, there's a lot of statues in London that look like him lying down there, and they're funeral statues. Not funeral statues, but commemorative statues. But they're all like lying down like that with their hat on their head. Now, unfortunately, I can't play sound because it'll just be, YouTube will just cut me off. So what we get now, McKay's character has already come from the Somme, so he already has had a taste of the brutality of war. Whereas his mate here, the Blake character, on the left, hasn't, and he's still giddy. He's still giddy with the joy of war. I can't help but think of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien. In fact, McKay's character looks a little bit like a young Tolkien. And you may laugh, but the first thing I noticed when I watched this first was oh look, it's Frodo and Sam, you know. It's got the little fat guy and Frodo, you know, and Blake is kind of like his Batman, his best mate, and he's going to help him, you know, bring the ring to Mount Doom. So you notice, just while I've been talking there, all this blue is starting to come in. Blue, blues and greys, blue everywhere. So we're walking away from nice, fertile, lush fields and trees into this bluey, grey, khaki brown, khaki green, horrible landscape. And they're chatting away there. Now look, and notice it's all in this one continuous shot. Now we're in the trenches now. Now we are most definitely away from the natural world. We're in this man-made hell, basically. It's a very claustrophobic. Look at all these the filth on the walls, the earth. You know, these guys have probably been here for months. Weeks and weeks, months waiting, setting up these wires here, telecommunication wires. Now you go to France now, and all this area now will be back to its original natural bucolic state. So in they go now to Aaron Moore, who's going to give them the details of their mission. So this gives Blake's character the impetus now to really be invested in the mission. He needs to get to his brother to save his brother. The big reveal: the Germans have gone. Yeah, so they're 9 miles away, and they have to get to this Mackenzie character. So that basically sets you up. You know, you're in the location. you have a kind of a fair idea of who these two characters are. What the they've established the mission, introduced the characters, and now we're going to move into we're going to start moving up a gear now, and you'll see that through Blake's character here as he moves, he's kind of ignited now with this. He just wants to get on with it now. And Thomas Newman's lovely score, nice kind of percussive, rhythmic pounding. Yeah. Schofield is not convinced. That wonderful line then. Fantastic, all shot with these little candle torches. And Blake's character is just off. And McKay here is kind of saying, you need to slow down, man. This is incredibly serious. You haven't got a clue what we're about to walk into now. You need to slow down. He's like, no. I need to get to my brother, and that's the end of it. Like, now, as we get closer, we're now walking up to the very end, or the very start of the very cold face, should I say, of the trench. And as we get there, the trench just gets less and less sophisticated in its design, and more dilapidated and more rough and ready. But just wonderful, world setting here. All this money that was spent on all these extras making. You only see them for a split second, but it all brings weight to the reality of the situation. Getting the post, packet of fags. Clean pair of socks, maybe. The sheets of corrugated iron, and then this wicker work here. It's just we just got to be a huge contrast when we get on the other side of no man's land, and look at how the Germans have been living high on the hog in terms of their living quarters and their living standards. These little show holes, look. Sitting in there getting a bit of rest out of the wind and the rain. Just beautifully conceived. Fantastic. I'm sure they had loads of fun making this, getting these tracking shots right, rehearsing. Like, it's just all wicker now at this point. Wicker and wood. Now we have this little meeting with the guy who's in charge of the front, and he's a little bit this little incident here now. These soldiers on edge. How many of their friends have they seen being killed? What's their mental, emotional status at that time? And Blake's feeling it, like. But we get to meet Andrew Scott's character here, who's basically just bewildered as to why they've been sent up here, and he's a bit frazzled by his experience. Knocking back whiskey from his little flask. You'll see now in a minute. So we're on the frontier, and they're literally digging more trench. There's an upturned tree back there. Yes, Major Stevenson. Or it's Lieutenant Leslie, yes. Like, where did you get the dog from, you know? Here's Leslie, played by Irish actor Andrew Scott. This is actually one of I'm not a massive fan of Andrew Scott. Like, he's a real pro, and he's a fine actor, but I'm just not a fan of him. I'm just not a fan, but I do like him in this role. I think he's perfectly suited for this. Yeah, he's not convinced. Yeah. So there's a little device. There's a mirror on the bottom, mirror on the top. So he can have a look over the trench into the no man's land. So he says they're 150 yards, and I have to say I think this is why it won special effects. This set that we're about to see is just incredible. It's almost like this next little bit here is like Dante's Inferno. We are now walking into hell, literally, quite literally walking into hell, and he blesses him. Cheerio. Yeah, God save the Queen God save the King over the top. And this is it now. So that's the first section over. We're now into the next section. So it's 150 yards of hell. "150 yards wide, and it went on for miles and miles and miles and miles." So this all had to be created. Every last square inch of this had to be created. It must have taken months. So the dead horse. At least we forget that World War One was the last Great War where horses were used. And as far as I know, I think 500,000 horses. Don't quote me on that now, but I'm very sure 500,000 horses were killed on both sides. And if it's not that big a number, it's a startling number anyway. Going through this barbed wire shit. You know, and they've done a great job. You go into the War Museum in London, the Imperial War Museum, and you will see pictures and photographs and paintings of this, and it's exactly like this. Exactly. You start to see this almost tarot figure, the Hanged Man. You know, most likely a German, just left there to rot. Catches his left hand in some barbed wire. So now he's injured his left hand. Not good. Not good. Here we are again with trees. Completely perished. And then beautifully stuck in there are these dead bodies. It reminds me of Aliens, the sequel to Alien, when they're in the factory and they realise that they're actually all in the walls. The aliens are in the walls. They have. Now this is great here now. He lands in this hole. There's this dead guy. There's the rats full of infection. There's another guy. It's just, and in goes the hand. And so now he's got a bloody hand, and it's now lathered in infection. So he has to deal with that. Some sort of another body. More bodies just melded into the landscape, and a lot of these guys will never be retrieved. They will never be buried, and all that's left of them to remind the world they ever existed is a little white cross in a field in northern France with their name on it. But these bodies more than likely were never retrieved. So this is all putrid water, and he's walking around with a bloodied hand. Again, we're keeping with this theme of bluey, brown, green, khaki greens and browns, mud, shit, effluent, decay, putrefaction, disaster, violence to the landscape, machinery, death. Another horse. About more bodies. There's a massive big crater they come into now. Just littered with bodies. Now he told them, be careful of these, they look deeper than they are. So they kind of have to navigate around them. I mean, this is just as good as back in '97 when Spielberg was doing Private Ryan. And look at this body here. It's nearly completely gone. Top middle of the frame there. Another one here on the right. Just has been there for months. In terms of how the lads felt that Spielberg had done them justice, and that's exactly, that opening sequence was exactly how it looked and felt. This Mendes has done the same for World War One, in terms of reenacting a trench, and No Man's Land. It's probably the best No Man's Land depiction of No Man's Land. Really, really beautifully done. There's a hand there, So they've made it across. And we'll see a stark difference in how the Germans are set up, both their living standards, their quarters, the technology they have. The first thing you notice is there's loads of concrete. They've had the time to set up concrete here, and they're a bit more spacey, a bit more roomy, a bit more comfortable. Ooh, so they're not gone too long. You look at their communication wires. I mean, just far more, efficient. Things are far cleaner and more organized. The two lads here are, really surprised. Wow, they have all these underground dormitories. Wow, with real beds. Yeah, that's Teutonic efficiency. Yeah, they really built all this. I love these little details, these little lamps that they have. Battery operated lamps. Circa 1940 whatever. Or sorry, 1917. Jesus. Probably state of the art as well. They were obviously keeping their grub in these little bags here, up away from the vermin. So it's really quite extensive. Now a rat is going to accidentally set off a tripwire here. I suppose if you're hungry, you will eat anything. And he notices the tripwire. No. Not a good result. So Blake runs into action here. Leaps into action even. To get his mate out. Beautiful shot coming up here now. Just beautiful. It just looks like porcelain. You know? It's like he's become part of the rock. And again, look, all just lit by this one little lamp here. Stunning. So I think Deacon used a 35 millimeter lens for all this claustrophobic interior, all these interiors. Now they have to get out because the entire shelter has been compromised. You know, all lit with this. You know, and of course, you know, as an audience member, you're just completely oblivious to the camera work that's going on because you're just caught up in the actual narrative. But like, how did that camera get across that little space there? You know, you don't even realize what's going on. Like. Now, I love this environment we're going into now, just to show you more of the German efficiency in the organisation and how they've spaced things out, but also this landscape, what they've done to this beautiful French countryside. I liken this little sequence here until they get to the farm as well, it reminds me of Beckett's Waiting for Godot. This is one little tree here, this set, this landscape, more trees. This whole landscape just reminds me of Waiting for Godot and Beckett, you know, and here you have these two characters like Dee Dee and Gogo, and they look like Dee Dee and Gogo, because Dee Dee and Gogo, one character's tall and the other character's small. They even sort of argue and bicker with each other like Dee Dee and Gogo from Waiting for Godot. Now, I'm not saying that was Mendes' intentions. It's just, for me, it just reminds me of it. And of course, that play is based on the absurdism, Camus' whole sort of philosophy, this kind of idea of accepting that the world is shit, that existence is shit, but just getting on with it basically. But also in Godot, the two characters are basically rehearsing the different options left to them, and they do it in this kind of arguing, bickering, comedic way. And they're kind of having a little argument here as well, these two characters. But they've made it across, so that's section, that's A, B. Now we're on to C. We move into C now, in a while. One. So they're heading to this town. Beautiful, great, just great. World building again. Look at all this artillery, this heavy artillery. The spoils of war. More dead German soldiers. There's that one lonesome tree again. Hanging on, clinging on. Oh yeah, this is a good little story. It's a good little story. Now we're walking out of hell. And we're back into the French countryside, but it's already being I wouldn't say tainted isn't the right word. It's already being destroyed by the Germans. So these far off fires are either downed planes or probably more than likely farms that they've set on fire as they've left, retreated, as the Germans have retreated. Yeah, he's giving out to him, he's the gung-ho patriot, he hasn't really, as a friend of mine says, he hasn't tasted the ashes yet, although he's about to. In the next few minutes, he's about to be cut short. He says, "No, that's all bullshit, mate." This is what he's trying to say to him. That's all bullshit. You know, the reality is that we're just two human beings stuck in this situation, and we're really no more different than the Germans on the other side, which is a very Beckett thing as well to say. You know, he said of life, you know, we are all prisoners in the same prison. So here we see these beautiful cherries blossoms, and they've been cut down. See, I told you this film would feature a lot of trees. Yeah, it's a great little line. So that's a little conceit, I think, that Mendes is putting in there. That trees are a symbol of strength, basically strength and being able to, you know, cling on even in the worst of circumstances. Dead dog. So this sequence is basically all about Schofield losing his partner here, his friend, his buddy, and the trauma of that. The insanity and brutality of the German pilot. The destruction that's been wrought on this, you know, this idyllic little farmstead. That's a very yellow French kitchen. The French love this colour yellow. If you ever go to Monet's home in the country, which is just north of Paris, you can take a train there. It takes about half an hour to get there, and he had this very traditional French yellow French kitchen. Again, all these lovely tracking shots that we just forget about them, but they're all so purposefully done. Everything rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed so that nothing was one cow left and that's its milk. So somebody was there till quite recently. There you go now. Lovely, fresh, unpasteurized, unhomogenized cow's milk. Sorry, I'm trying not to make as much noise with my fucking shoes. The seat I'm sitting in isn't the most comfortable. I bought it second hand, and it's just not the most comfortable, but I'm waiting for another one to come. Oh, sorry, making too much noise again. So here comes the pilot. So this is the sort of ongoing dog fight that's been going. When they first left the forest there, they saw the beginning of this dog fight, so it's continuing on. It's a great shot here now. Now, I don't know if they did that for real or if that's been digitally put in there. You know, you kind of have to be... yeah, he's been shot. You kind of have to be... I think this is all digital until it comes over the... McKay runs towards it. No, bad idea. Yeah, I think it's all digital till here. That's a real prop. You know, and there's a humanity there. They try to get him out. But I think you had to be a bit of a mad bastard to be driving planes back then. You know, considering that they were only not even 10 years old, just over 10 years old. You know, the technology would have been very, very basic. It's basically a little biplane with guns on it. He goes to get water, and in the meantime his friend is being murdered. So this is really well done, this little death scene. It's really well done. No, it's not going to be all right. No, he can't do anything. He's going to abandon the mission. You can be shot in the stomach or in the bowel area and you know, not be killed instantly, but it's one of the worst ways to die. It's horrifically painful, and it can take anything up to 3 days, and essentially your blood is being slowly poisoned from all the infections in there. Look, it's very good makeup here. He's lost a lot of blood. The lips. You know, you see in this situation, what do you do? What do you say? What are the last things you say to somebody? Of course, in this case, he was stabbed, not shot. But the same thing. You can live for a long time, but it's a really horrible way to go. You die from blood poisoning, essentially, and it can be agonizing. It's very well done. He doesn't want to be scared. He's gone. It's really well done. Really well done. It's fucked. The map is fucked. Drenched with blood. He takes his personal paraphernalia, his rings, to give to his brother, and his dog tags. And here comes the cavalry. Now here's Mark Strong, English actor. Started off in The Bill back in the 1980s. TV series The Bill. made quite a career in Hollywood for himself. And he just has to abandon his friend there. And that's the last time you'll see him. The lad's having a piss. And here's this tough kind of. He represents the kind of the establishment, the British establishment, military that got them got these lads into this mess in the first place. The whole lions led by donkeys or whatever the expression was. That's what he represents. Barking at them, So we have this little sort of joining sequence. We're just about nearly halfway through the movie now. This little sequence, just I suppose to give a little bit of context to the other Tommies, British Tommies at the time, their different backgrounds, where they were coming from, what their motivations were, and how young they were. Look at this kid here at the very end, very young. And that was that, you were. They were all so gung ho at the beginning. These young English lads, most of them would have come from poor rural backgrounds or poor urban backgrounds. Had fuck all education, very little prospects for any sort of a decent job or wage. So this would have been a massive distraction for them, and they were getting paid for it. I mean, look how bad his teeth are. So they were all gung ho for it, and the glee of war. But that didn't last very long. More trees chopped down. and it's this Sikh here with this turban, and I think there's a black character in there as well, and they weren't. The historians were a little bit miffed by that, but you can see what Mendes was doing. He was just trying to incorporate that it wasn't just all Anglo-Saxon Caucasians that were fighting. It was an imperial war that affected all the continents of the earth, wherever the Brits had invaded. But so we don't know what's going to happen to these lads, where they're going to be now in the next day or two, who they are. Did they survive? We don't know anything of that information. Now I am going to take a break in a few minutes. I'm going to hit pause. That doesn't mean that you hit pause, it just means that I will hit pause, and by the magic of editing, I will be back, and you won't even know that I've gone. And I really hope this is all being recorded and you can all hear me. Yeah, terrible. Just, what do they call that? A total war? Or the Brits actually invented it. This, yeah, who does that? Yeah, didn't they shoot all the? They killed all the South African sheep farmers, the Boers. That they shot all their livestock. 20 years before this. Put their women and children into concentration camps. So he sends him on his merry way up this canal, some French canal in the northeast of France. Oh yes, make sure they're witnesses. Yeah, this is a good point. Yeah. That's a very real phenomenon in armies. You will have, in a platoon, you will have, 98% of the men will be very sheepish. They need to be trained, they need to be drilled into being, trained killers and following orders. Then you'll get 1% of the platoon that is what we refer to as the hero, but then you will get that 1% that are genuinely psychotic, and they have found a niche for themselves in in war, basically. That the war allows these people to thrive, basically, and they enjoy killing, and because they've been mandated to do it, they do it, but they do it with glee and relish, and a certain amount of brutality. So that's a good little point the Mark Strong character relays to Schofield, you know. Make sure there's witnesses. Oh. So we're coming now to the end of this first sort of intended big part of the movie. So as I said at the beginning, Mendes intended that there would be a kind of morning to evening, and then overnight to the morning again, to the following morning, and that he would split the film in two parts, and that the shooting script would reflect that in terms of all the camera movement and the camera work, etc., etc. So we're coming to the end of that first section. Now there's a sniper somewhere up here he has to deal with. And he deals with him, and then he I think he gets knocked out or grazed by a bullet, and that sort of knocks him out for a little while, and the camera will fade to black, at which point I am going to get something to eat and come back to you. By the magic of editing, you won't even realize I've gone. So these old World War One rifles, I think they go back, or were they newly invented? There's something rifle they were called. I forget the fucking name of them now. They could have been newly invented, or there was a newly invented version of it, and it was just a little bit easier and more what's the word I'm looking for there? A little bit easier to use, but also more reliable. There's something rifle. The Lancaster or something. But the Brits supposedly were using this type of rifle for the last 20 years. No, less evolved variations of it, but this was the general standard gun. Very good, yeah. They shoot each other at the same time. So he did shoot that. He compromised the Germans. Now I am going to pause here and get back to ye in a while. And by the power of Grayskull, I have returned. I actually ate and then I napped. So I'm back up again. Anyway, so now we are into the second section. Okay, so this is the night to the morning section in terms of the editing and the camera work. And he's going to wake up now in this tower. He has been shot, but has he just been grazed, or I can't quite remember. Anyway, up he gets. Now there's about we're into the last 40 minutes of this movie now. So up he gets. And he's obviously been hit somewhere and then been thrown. So he was concussed for a while. So back to Roger Deakins and his beautiful, beautiful lighting. So what he did here was he got a crane with a huge lamp on it, and he would literally lift the lamp and the crane and then move it, and it would create these fabulous shadow fields. That's how that effect was done. Really, really basic, old school, camera work. Very simple, old school Hollywood at its best. Then on the right there, he'll have some sort of big hot lamp, and then he will have added in a kind of he will have enhanced the glow of that fire on the right. Now we're on the move again. Escaping the home. I'm not 100% sure how much of this was actually built. I think they found a location. And just enhanced it. And there's McKay doing his wrought run. And again, just this really simple. These are flares going up, but Deakins has just, as I said, he uses this big lamp, and he puts it on a crane, and he's hoisting and lifting and moving it around, and then dropping it down slowly to create these wonderful shadows. So back in Dante's Inferno, I suppose. Now there's a wonderful shot coming up here now. All very, very sparse, you know. No, there's not lots of actors. You know, there's nothing moving around, no cars, no tanks. It's all pulled back. Here we go now. Here's his Gone with the Wind. This is Deakins now, and his Gone with the Wind. His nod to Gone with the Wind. Lovely little tracking camera shot as it pulls up behind him to reveal this. It's either a church or a city hall, and then out of that mist comes, is it friend or foe? It turns out to be a foe. It's a German, and he realizes that he comes after him. Starts firing. Now he's on the run. This German is a terrible shot. He falls. Okay, thinking on his feet. Runs into this basement for shelter. And then we have this sort of annoying 10-minute section. And I don't really know what this is all about. I suppose I don't know what the need for this is. I suppose we haven't really seen any of the victims in it. We haven't seen the public in it. We haven't seen how the local people are dealing with it. So we haven't really seen anyone bar soldiers. So she meets this French woman who's looking after her baby, and she has very little resources. And she's also lonely and scared and frightened and kind of begs him to stay. So you see that wonderful little tracking shot there. Started on the other side of him, moves around him, and then comes back into focus as he turns his head to realise he has to go back out again into the river. All shot by this single light source, which creates this wonderful chiaroscuro effect, this black, this light and dark effect, which goes back to the 17th century painters. Like well, the most famous one is Caravaggio, but it's just a really simple lighting technique, you know. I heard some director say, I think it was the director of Empire Strikes Back, says there's nothing more fascinating than the landscape of the human face, you know. So I think DPs try their best really to get the best side of us. And she has him in the cabinet. So the child is a refugee herself. I'd forgotten that, yeah. So we can assume that she's lost her family. The girl, the lady here, and the child has lost her family. So. And he just so happens to have milk. Fresh milk. So he gives his supplies to her. Drops a bit of weight off. Those soldiers carry incredible weights. I was in an exhibition in the Tower of London, and it was an army bag a soldier would wear when and it was on a steel rod, So it would go up and down, you could get in and out of it, but then there was a little catch in it you could pull and you could feel the weight of it. And, they carry enormous amounts of weight. And then it says, in the literature that's around the little display, it says, hold this weight, and it's like something like half of the weight of half a person, if not more. And now go and walk for 30 miles, or what they call yomping, which goes back to the Falklands, where the British, the Falklands are actually two massive islands, and they took the right one, and they landed on the backside of the right one, and they then had to walk 40 miles across that side of the island to get to Stanley, and this was the only way that they could that's the only way they could counter surprise the Argentinians. So it was a huge deal for them, but I think it took them 2 or 3 days or something like that. So they would and they were drinking water from like boggy upland pool water, and it was giving them all diarrhea, even though they were using the tablets, the sterilization tablets. But so they were all shitting themselves. Their feet were all fucked up. But they got there. They got to the hills, the outskirts of Stanley, and started to attack the. Once they cleared those hills, the Argentinians pretty much gave up. Now he's leaving now, back out into the fire, back out into danger. So yeah, those soldiers, they could carry an extremely heavy weight, but then they're all trained. They train for them for months and months and months. They're well used to these walks, and they're all fit as fuck. You have to be. So, back to Schofield running again, and there's a German soldier getting sick. For what reason, we don't know. I think they've been drinking, have they? They've been drinking. Yeah, they've been drinking. He's pissed. And he has to kill. And this is what I was saying earlier on. This it's done in this very. They've done it in this Hollywood manner to make it less graphic, but it still has impact. And this is the thing: they are trained to kill, and they have to be brought to that level, and it's done by removing, they are, as human beings, they're reduced to things that will take orders. So when the time comes, it's automatic for them, because most guys, most men don't have that type of bravery. Most men would run away, they would flee, they would or give in. They would just accept defeat. So it takes. It's not just about courage. It's actually about how they're trained, and they're trained to react. And this is what you do. And they will rehearse this over and over again. So he knew what he had to do in that situation. It's only afterwards that the psychological impact of killing another human being comes into it, that you have to deal with that. But they are trained, they are literally trained killers. That's what soldiers do. And they strip these lads down, mentally and physically and socially, so that they're in a position to take these orders and do these very extreme things. So we're into the river. Now, this river isn't a bad idea because he has to lose his weight. That's what's about pulling him down. It'll also, bang. It'll also, the river will also help to disinfect those wounds he has. Down the waterfall. So bless him, he's been through a lot now, hasn't he? Poor old Schofield. And up he comes, up he comes. Grabs a bit of wood. Hang on to that now for dear life, man. Now we have the cherry blossoms. Trees again, trees. As I said, trees feature throughout this movie. And they've created this sort of beaver dam with all these bloated dead corpses. And of course, this is what's going to happen to you when you're in your coffin. You blow up and essentially you explode from a buildup of gases produced by the bacteria in your stomach, and they eat you from the inside out. That's what happens. It's pretty grim. So at last he's reached the safety of shore. supposedly when they were filming this, they filmed it up in the north of England, and they had to tell people, the local people, don't be put off if you see a floating body coming down the river. They had to warn the locals that they were dummies, they weren't real, not to be reporting them to the police. Now I think this is very Tolkien-esque. This thing now here where he wanders into this glade with all these people, and they're with this young fella singing a very beautiful melody. It's like a little moment of, I don't know, it's almost religious, isn't it? It's like a moment of meditation before war. They know, a lot of them probably aren't going to survive the day, so this is probably comforting to them. A lot of the false bravado of youth was stripped away from these guys, from what they had endured, what they had gone through. So moments of peace and camaraderie would have been very effective. And they were so terribly young. And you can go to any little town or village all across England. All across England, north, south, east, and west, and you'll find a little plinth, a memorial plinth in every single one of them. It might be only 20 or 30. Or there could be hundreds depending on where you go. But there'll be one there. There'll be a little not a cenotaph, but a little needle, and or like a little cenotaph, and there'll be the named soldiers who died in World War One. And it was their Vietnam. It was England's Vietnam. It was the Empire's Vietnam. And what was it all for? What was World War One all about? You know, there are still, probably only a handful, but there's still scholars in England to this day that say, oh, you know, it was, you know, in terms of the grand historical picture and the grand scheme of things, it was a war that needed to be done, needed to happen. Did it really? No, I don't think so. It was a confluence of a lot of egos and agendas, and one-upmanship, and thinking that each side knew tactically how good they were, what their strengths and weaknesses was, and how they were going to defeat each other, and they didn't. They just walked their way into paralysis and stasis. And now we're into the very last scene here, the last sequence of the movie, and you'll notice he's not as gentle this time as he walks down the trench. He's pushing and shoving his way. He's found his objective, and now we're in. I suppose history repeats itself. Here we are again now, at a new front. This is a front in its infancy. They haven't shored up the sides of the walls yet, but they will eventually. You know, that's what's eventually going to happen. So, you know, in a couple of weeks, and see the length of it, it just keeps going and going and going. And this will be, within a couple of weeks, this will be more established, and eventually it'll turn into a mucky, dirty sinkhole. Now he's finding his way down. It's all pretty straightforward. Here we go. This is another thing that happens quite regularly. Some of them just lost it. The time came, and they lost it. These the lions led by donkeys. Here's a donkey, and I'm sure he's sitting there pissing himself, petrified. As I said, you put so many men into a room. 98% of us are cowards. We have to be trained to do this stuff. Only 1% of us are naturally gifted heroes, and then 1% are lunatics. And here we have a hero confronting a lunatic in the end, and trying to call off this attack. Again, like, really great work from the cast and crew here, just trying to realise all this. So he's like 300 yards. There's no way I'm going to get down through all this. So he has to make this break for it. Now there's about 10 minutes left in this movie now. So this is the big running sequence. So they were at this for 2 days, supposedly. I read in my Wikipedia, and when he gets hit here, that really did happen. It wasn't planned for, and it happens again. And he said no. He just went with it, and that's the take that the director went with. It's great now the way they can augment these explosions. So obviously they're less deadly on the actual on the shooting day, but they're They're wonderfully augmented. They look very real. So he's in. You're seeing like how green and pastoral that land is. And in a couple of weeks, it's going to be what we saw at the beginning of the movie. So he finally makes it to Mackenzie, and Mackenzie is wonderfully played by Mr. Cumberbatch. You see, he's battle hardened. This Mackenzie fella. He's got this wonderful scar to his left eye. So you're kind of wondering, what's this guy's agenda? What did Strong say to him? Wonderful little tracking shot up to him. Yeah. I mean, the guy he's like kind of a Kitchener, Kitchener type of character. The Strong character said to him, make sure you have witnesses. Otherwise, Mackenzie could have very easily have eliminated him. Quietly. He's almost a nihilist, The Mackenzie character, he's almost a nihilist, There's a certain psychosis going on there. To the last man standing, I mean, that's the way we're going to defeat the Hand. Yeah, wipe them out, all of them. Now this is a nice little coda here. He has to go and find this character, and then we are done and dusted. And I will leave you and thank you very much for listening to me ranting on. And hopefully you enjoy it, and you subscribe or you press the like button or whatever you have to do. I mean, I'm not on this channel to make money or anything, but I'm going to try and use it primarily for the art and the art of a black tribe. That is the name of the production organization I am part of, A Black Tribe. I wouldn't call it an organization, it's more of a group. A co-op. a band of merry men. Look at this. So he's delighted now. All the lads have been called back. Obviously a few have been wounded, but for the most part they are alive. So we live to fight another day. Again, wonderfully conceived. I think he had 500 extras. That's what he had. 500 extras. It's just kept on moving them around. Great fun. And I've been on sets like this, and when you have huge, especially army movies, I mean, they're generally there for weeks and weeks, and they have them all. There's great camaraderie between them all, you know, and they generally go from, a lot of these extras will generally go from movie to movie to movie, so that a lot of them will know each other, and they bring their caravans and their cars and whatever, and they're basically getting fed and water twice a day, and they get to hang out and then go out drinking in the evening and get up and do it again the next morning. It's a great life if you're up for it. I'm thinking of maybe doing one of these on Dunkirk, which is a totally different kettle of fish. Christopher Nolan's highly stylized film. This film is not stylized. This is like that arm's gonna have to be taken off. This is as close as he's trying to get to reality. Nolan's film is very stylized. It's all shot in this very bluey cast. All the lads, look like they come from a Brill Cream ad. And he does what he does best, which is his obsession with time, and he loves quandaries. He's a bit of a Hitchcock. He likes quandaries, and he sets up something like 30 different quandaries in that movie. But we'll talk about that some other time. Here we have Madden, Mr. Madden, and he's Blake's brother. At least he had something to give him, And now that's that. Wonderful little camera move there, which leads us into this. Back we are to this French bucolic idyll back under the tree. Now this tree is a little picked at, but it's still there. It's still surviving. It's by itself. It's still going. It's a bit harried. It's lost a few branches, but it's still standing. As is our as is our hero, our main character, our protagonist, Will Schofield. He has made it to the end. A little bit tired, but brand new, as Bjork would say. So it says, it starts with the tree, it ends with the tree, and as I promised you, trees do feature a lot in this movie. Symbols of strength, longevity, renewal. Blake's little reference to how the Germans thought that they were being smart by cutting down the blossoms, and Blake says, no, they only grow back stronger now. And here's pictures of his family. Supposedly that's his mama, and it says, "Come back to us." Wonderful, wonderful. And so many didn't. Hundreds of thousands, and it went on and on and on and on and on and on. It's interesting. You can map most of what happens in the 20th century, going right back to the what was known as the Congress of Vienna, around the turn of the century before, so the 18th century. I got that right? The 19th century. So, and there you go for Lance Corporal Hendrik Mendes. That's his paternal grandfather. Goes back to the Congress of Vienna, back to the 1800s, the turn of the 19th century, and he basically you have what you have is leading up to what you have is Napoleon, basically the fall of Napoleon. You have the fall of Napoleon. What you have basically for a long time, in terms of geopolitical history, is who's going to come out on top? Who's going to be number one? Is it going to be the French, or is it going to be the English? And by the English defeating Napoleon, they end up being the winners. This is where all this Rule Britannia shit comes from. It comes from that area, because they quite literally were on top of the world. And over the next 70, 80 years, were about to completely dominate. They were about to dominate India, they were about to dominate Canada, large swathes of Africa, the Middle East and Southeast Asia, and numerous little islands and ports and holdings all over the seas. So after the defeat of Napoleon, Britain is numero one. They are the America of their day. They're the most advanced technologically. They have the largest armies. They're well equipped. They have incredible reach, and they have superior technology. But so everything that's decided from the Congress of Vienna of how power in Europe is going to be dealt with, and how it's going to be divvied up, and how it's going to be who's going to be in charge of this, that, and the other. All of that is a consequence. All of that has consequences down the road, and all these smaller conflicts that happen are all related to these decisions that were made in 1801. I think the Congress of Vienna. And they all led basically to essentially a massive arms race and imperial expansion. France, not down and out, but certainly certainly concentrating on their own agenda as opposed to world domination. That turns to Germany, and the irony is that the English establishment are cousins to the German establishment. So it's this family rivalry built up with this sense of superiority and accomplishment, and an arms race that basically leads to a melting pot that becomes World War One, and even that didn't get the whole situation of peace in Europe right. We had to go it again, and the 20 years in between the two wars led the consequences of the First World War again back to the Treaty of Versailles, going back then to the Congress of Vienna. Here we go again, 100 years later, making all the same mistakes again, which lead up to the empowering of Hitler and the National Socialists, and then we have World War II. And it's only after World War II that the European civilization realizes no, the only way forward out of this is economic and material and mineral sharing, cooperation. And that's how the European Union started. The European Union started as a coal and steel economic coal and steel cooperation between the larger powers, between France, Britain and Germany, mostly between France and Germany. And this was basically to stop either side trying to gain too much resource, because if one side had too much resource, they knew they were building up their army. The other side would have to build up their army, and we would start all over again. So that's where the European Union comes from. It starts as a resource cooperation kind of get together, and then over time it slowly evolves into this thing where it's now 27 countries or 26 countries, and we have everything the EU is now. And never since the beginning of it, never since the Roman Empire, has Europe been at such peace because of this massive continent-wide cooperation. Anyway, I am now waffling on about history, but World War One is fascinating. There's 101 books you can get on it. I tend to veer away from books that are very jingoistic and rah, bully for the English. No, the war bankrupted England, which was also part of the reason Churchill was told going in 1939, if you go into this war in World War II, if you go into this war, you will lose your empire, because you're only starting to get your feet back up on the ground, and you're now talking about going into another massive, huge, big money pit, and that's what happened. So after World War II, England starts to lose her empire. So that was the payoff. So yeah, stay away from those ones. There are nice little short histories, but it is essentially an exercise in lunacy. It's an exercise in I'm better than you. My Jesus is better than you. I have more guns than you. I have more metal than you. I have more ships than you, and that's essentially what it was all about. Right, I'm going to leave you there. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I'm just looking at all the extras. Oh my god. Oz Dolphin, Wink Fan. Okay. So that's it. Thank you very much. As I said, I'm going to try and do one on Brexit, as it was called back in the day, Dunkirk. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you garnered some information from this, and also just enjoyed it. And as I said, if you like what you heard, hit the subscribe and thumbs up, and we'll try and do more. Thank you so much. Thank you so much from people. Now just rewatch this and enjoy listening to it without me listening to it. Haven't listened to me. Take care, folks. Bye bye.